In a small and picturesque village in ancient Korea, the women doing laundry are gossiping. The main topic of their gossip is Shim's daughter, who was going to be sold for 300 rice bags. They think that it was pointless to have so much food that a man could not finish it. Someone begins talking about another neighbor who could eat it all and not share anything with them. But then the conversation comes back to where it started, about the poor girl who was going to die, losing her life the way she was supposed to. The girl falls off the boat in which she was traveling. As she drowns, she thinks about her father and how she will never be able to see him again. And meanwhile, her father is looking at the weather and hoping that his daughter Chunji returns soon. Just then, a man comes running towards Shim and tells him terrible news. His daughter had fallen off the ship, and Chunji thinks that she is a terrible daughter who is now going to be sacrificed. And she has only one wish for her father. She wants him to live a long life. But when Chunji opens her eyes, she is lying on a pile of gold and sees something in front of her. She thinks it was the goblin from the other world that had come to take her. But in front of her is an angry dragon who wants to know how she came into his dungeon. The girl is shocked, and the dragon asks her to give an answer to his question. But Chunji's eyes start sparkling as she looks at the dragon, and she calls him the Dragon King. Chunji thinks that right now she is at the Dragon King's palace. She introduces herself as the daughter of the Shim household. But seeing her bow down before him, the dragon is confused. The girl mistakes his confusion for anger and bows even lower, asking for forgiveness. The dragon is completely dumbfounded now. Usually, when humans came to his dungeon, they first tried to kill him. But the moment they realized the difference in their powers, they begged for their lives. But the dragon had never seen a human look at him like that, with sparkling eyes and a feeling of awe. Chunji says that it was an honor to meet the Dragon King. And the dragon is confused about when he became the king of dragons. The dragon, whose name is Berkes, had great magic power. He made a dungeon filled with gold and silver, and for a long time, he has been hiding in his dungeon with his treasure. That is the rumor Chunji had heard, and it perfectly fit Berkes. But Berkes tells Chunji that he was not the Dragon King, and she is confused now. He says that if she was looking for the Dragon King, she was probably a few centuries late. 500 years ago, when Berkes reached adulthood, he did not make his own dungeon. Instead, he decided to take one from some other dragon. He flew to this dungeon and challenged the owner of this dungeon, the dragon Mariung Kaiserus. Kaiserus was strong enough to destroy the world, but Berkes told him to leave the dungeon, and he would spare his life. Kaiserus got angry at the insolence of young Berkes and attacked him. But Berkes killed him with just one punch. He tells this story to Chunji, and she starts thinking. But Berkes is shocked that the girl was not even surprised. And then she tells him that since he defeated the previous Dragon King, he must be stronger than him, and thus he is the Dragon King now. But Berkes tells her that he does not want to be bothersome like the Dragon King. He is almost horrified by that possibility. But then he realizes that he was being distracted from the main topic. He again asks Chunji how she came into his dungeon. Berkes' breath is as strong as a storm, and Chunji tells him her story. She jumped into the sea, and when she opened her eyes, she was here. Berkes tells her that the sea is not even visible from the dungeon, and he cannot believe Chunji's words. She just says that she could not lie to the Dragon King. Berkes is now suspicious that the girl might have broken through the defenses of the dungeon. He thinks that it is not possible for a mere human. But if she did that, other humans would also eventually find their way into the dungeon. And even if he could just blow them away with a breath, humans were pesky. And in the worst case scenario, Berkes may never get to sleep peacefully again. He shouts at Chunji and asks her to tell the truth. She must have some special talent or hidden ability that she used to have. Chunji begins thinking about any special talents she has, and the only specialty she can think of is the taste of her hand. Berkes is even more confused and thinks that the girl was spouting nonsense. Chunji explains that ever since she was a little girl, she was very good at making soy sauce. Everyone complimented her for her skills. And one time, when she took a part-time job, she found that she had a talent for making Korean pancakes and noodles. Chunji excitedly tells Berkes about her cooking skills, and he is confused about how she entered the dungeon. But then Chunji remembers her father and says that she wishes to treat him to delicious food. As she says this, she starts to cry because now she can't cook for him at all. The dragon is also perplexed now. Chunji was really cheerful just a moment ago, but now she was wailing. He is tired and annoyed and can't even understand what she was saying while crying. So he decides to just sleep. If he slept for about 100 years, the human would stop making noise. But at that time, the dragon did not know the fate of the bothersome child, and he did not even know that he would become a morning dragon. It takes Chunji 30 minutes to calm herself down, and she is instantly embarrassed by the fact that she was crying in front of the Dragon King. But as she apologizes and tells him that she was thinking about her father, Shinji finds that the dragon is already asleep. She thinks it's fine to go closer to him. And then she finds that Berkey's was even taller than her grandmother's home's roof. But her stomach is growling loudly, and Shinji remembers that she did not have breakfast. But in the pile of treasure, she cannot see anything that can be eaten. She starts exploring the place and says that the Dragon King's palace was indeed marvelous. But it is a bit lonely since she cannot find the servants of the Dragon King. She finds that the wind is coming from one pathway and decides to see if it leads outside. And even though she has doubts about roaming without permission, she thinks that she could meet the Dragon King's servants. Shinji explores the path and finally spots something green. She walks towards it and finds sweet potato plants. She confirms that they are indeed sweet potatoes. But as she digs one out, she finds that the sweet potato is much bigger than she had expected. But then she gets worried that she might have done something that she should not have. Maybe the sweet potato was really precious, and she was not even allowed to eat it. Shinji is worried and anxious about it, but then she gets an idea. When the Dragon King wakes up, he must be hungry. If she offers it to him first, he might not have a problem with her eating it. But when she returns to the sleeping dragon, she realizes that she has no means of cooking it. And she could not serve a raw sweet potato to Berkey's. But as she is fretting about it, Berkey's breathes out fire from his nostrils. Shinji realizes that she can use his breath to roast the sweet potato. She starts looking for something to use in the treasure pile. Everything seems too expensive, and at last she finds a long sword with minimal decoration. She sticks it in the sweet potato and holds it in the dragon's breath to roast it. It is hot, but Shinji cannot afford to make excuses here. She remembers the time when a neighbor gifted her some sweet potatoes. The neighbor had a good harvest that year and told Shinji that since they had a lot, it was good to share. And she took it home to feed it to her father. She was taught that they tasted best if they were roasted slowly over a low fire. But then Berkey's wakes up and asks her what she was doing. And Shinji realizes that he was annoyed that she was roasting sweet potatoes on his breath. She is nervous and cannot give him a proper response. But Berkey's is also confused that the girl has not left even though she had a chance. He had thought that she would be wise to take the opportunity, but she was doing something foolish. He thinks about just killing her. But Shinji apologizes and explains that she wanted to prepare a delicious meal for him. Berkey's asks her if she was trying to cook for herself and has been lying since she got caught. But Shinji gets flustered and says that she would never dare to do that. She presents the roasted sweet potato on a silver platter and tells him that she prepared it with all her heart. Berkey's still does not understand the girl's motives, but he decides to try the sweet potato. And if he did not like the taste, he was going to kill and eat Shinji. Shinji gets sad and gloomy and accepts her fate. If the sweet potato was not good enough, she would sacrifice her life to the Dragon King. And then Berkey's transforms into a silver-haired young man and says that they should eat then. Shinji blushes as she sees him in a human way. Her heart flutters, and she cannot say anything. Berkey's asks her if he looked weird, but instead of giving him any reply, Shinji gives him the sweet potato suddenly and says to take care since it was hot. She had thought that the Dragon King was a grumpy old man, but he turned out to be a handsome young man, and from her perspective, he was gleaming and shining. Berkey's also thinks that Shinji blushing over something like this is cute. And then he is taken aback by his own thoughts. He is confused about why he would suddenly find a human cute, and he is annoyed since he does not understand. But Shinji's heart is still beating rapidly. She is worried about Berkey's eating her if the food is not to his liking. Berkey's takes a bite and thinks that it was just an ordinary sweet potato. But as the taste coats his mouth, he feels that it was wonderful. It was perfectly sweet, neither too much nor too little. And even though it was chewy, its texture was also very soft. He thinks that it tastes good and that he should have some more. But when Shinji asks him for feedback, he is flustered. He does not know how to respond. A moment ago, he was arrogant and mad, and if he admitted that it was good, it would wound his pride. But he still wants to eat more and wonders how he could do so. Shinji sees him shaking and trembling and concludes that it was not tasty. But Berkey's clears his throat and says that it tasted good. But one dish was not good enough to decide Shinji's worth. If he got another dish, he would be able to decide whether to keep her alive or kill her. Berkey's thinks that this was a smart solution. This way, he won't have to kill Shinji and he could eat more of her cooking. Shinji asks if Berkey's wants her to make another dish, and he asks her if she is not confident now. But Shinji sadly replies that it seemed that no matter what she did, the Dragon King would surely kill her. Berkey's gets nervous and asks her why she was having such thoughts when he was giving her a chance. And Shinji has to explain the situation to him properly. The dungeon was full of gold and silver, and that was the end of it. There was nothing for her to cook, and simply finding the sweet potatoes was like a miracle. and that is why she believed that it was just an elaborate method of teasing her on the way to death. Shinji says that even though Berkes was the Dragon King, such tactics were really cruel. These words go right through the dragon's heart, and he tells her that he understands. As long as there are ingredients, she won't have a problem making the dish. As Shinji confirms this, Berkes says that he just has to send her outside to get the ingredients. He snaps his fingers, and a giant lion comes running towards him. Berkes tells Shinji that this creature was a manticore. Once upon a time, it used to eat humans, but today it was going to give her a ride outside. Berkes tells Shinji that the manticore has a soft fur that will give her a comfortable ride. But she does not pay attention to him. Her attention is fixed on the giant lion-like monster, and she decides to call it Diho. Berkes is getting excited to eat more of Shinji's cooking, and he tells her to quickly get on the manticore. Shinji struggles to climb it, and she is also afraid of the monster, but she thinks that it was fine since Diho served the Dragon King. Berkes asks her not to run away after tricking the manticore. But the manticore is ready to take off, and as he flies away, Shinji screams. But Berkes remembers that he forgot to tell the manticore not to eat the girl. But he thinks that it was too much bother to call it back for additional instructions. He would rather spend his time sleeping. It would not be his headache if the girl ended up being eaten up. As Diho is flying over the green plants, Shinji is clutching his hair tightly. She is worried that she might fall off and die. But there is another thing. She believes that there will be a sea outside the Dragon King's palace and she will drown. But as Diho comes out of the entrance of the dungeon, Shinji finds that they are in the open sky, and beneath them was not a sea, but a forest. She is surprised that the land is full of grass and trees, and there is even a river here. Diho lands and shakes Shinji off. She gets down, and the manticore begins to scratch himself. Shinji looks around and thanks herself for her luck. She was thinking that she might have to catch fish underwater for the Dragon King. But even then, there was nothing much here. Only some vegetable plants and herbs. Shinji could not find anything that could replace barley and rice, and there was nothing to season the food as well. So, she thinks that it would be a good idea to make Korean pancakes. And since there is a pond nearby, she wants to collect lotus root to make a pancake out of it. Diho is constantly scratching himself, and dust was flying because of that. And because of that, Shinji could not pick vegetables. But she wonders why he was moving like that. The truth was that Diho was feeling very itchy. A few hundred years ago, when the owner of the dungeon changed, Diho was happy. He was happy that the Dragon Kaiseress was dead and had waited a long time for this day. He had been trapped by him for hundreds of years to guard the gates and eat the humans, and now he would finally be free. But Berkes also noticed the manticore. Diho started growling and rubbing himself with the dragon's legs in order to show his thanks. He wanted to get free, and even Berkes could not be bothered to take care of it. So he just tossed him outside and told him to guard the gates and eat the humans. And even as Diho cried, he could not leave the dungeon. It had been many centuries now, and he was still in the dungeon. And that long time without self-care had led to many problems like skin diseases, fleas, and bad odor. And he was completely a mess right now. As Diho is rolling on the ground while scratching himself, Shinji is reminded of her cat. She got ill with a skin disease and started to behave in a similar manner. And Shinji says that she was going to scratch his back if he did not have a problem with it. And as she uses a big stick to scratch the manticore's back, he feels truly relieved. It had been a long time since he felt like this. Shinji keeps on scratching him and asks Diho if he feels better now. And he is happy since he has never felt so relaxed. The last time he felt so good was when he was a 1-year-old cub and a human treated him kindly. And he is not sure how Shinji was able to figure him out so well. She asks if she should scratch elsewhere, and he feels that would be nice. Shinji says that Diho might be suffering from rubella, which does not go away so easily, so she would be checking up on him frequently. Now Diho's heart has been won by the kind human. He wishes that he could be treated with this kindness for his entire life. And Shinji also hopes that Diho likes it. And just like that, she unknowingly made the manticore a friend. They return to the dungeon, and Diho has been washed by Shinji. But she is exhausted after working so much, and it is still not over. Now she has to cook for Berkes. But he is just pretending to be asleep, and here's what Shinji is saying. There was another problem, and he did not want to be a part of anything. Somewhere else in the dungeon, a suit of armor is creaking, and then its glove falls off. Back at Shinji's place, she is confused about how to cook now. She has all the ingredients, but there are no utensils to prepare and cook food with. But Berkes pretends to sleep even as she approaches him. He is annoyed and wakes up to hear Shinji's request. She tells him that she is not certain that she can cook here, and Berkes asks her why she could not. Shinji replies that she wanted to cook as fast as she could, but there were no materials she needed to cook. and the annoyed Berkes asks if she wants to use his nose again. Shinji tells him everything she will need: a pan to mix the ingredients, a pot to knead the dough, and a pan to fry the pancakes. Along with that, she would also need a stove of sorts. Berkes is overwhelmed and asks her if she really wants all that, and Shinji says she does. Berkes has nothing to say, and he says that he doesn't know anything about what she just said, so he was going to sleep again. But Shinji starts saying that she could not make a dish to satisfy his palate without the required tools, and if he did not like that dish, he said he was going to eat her. If that happens, she will not be able to return home. And finally, she says that she might hate the Dragon King, and starts crying. Berkes gets up in shock and asks Shinji what he could do then. Shinji looks at him innocently and says that she just wanted one small flavor from the Dragon King. Berkes cannot help but think that she was trying to take advantage of him with her cuteness. But since she was working hard to complete the task he gave her, he could not scold her. He tells her that he really does not know anything about the tools she wants to have. She could use just about anything she could find here. Shinji takes this instruction, but even as she tries to find something useful in the treasure heap, she is unsuccessful. She has not found anything useful, and Berkes has already gone back to sleep. Shinji thinks that she might have to go through the entire pile, but Dio comes to her aid. He was listening to everything and realized that she was in trouble. He cannot let the dragon eat her, so he approaches her excitedly. Shinji understands that Dio wants to help her and follows him to a passageway. An old, creaking, and broken suit of armor is sitting with its back to the wall. It was a living armor that was created using movement magic. Using its movement magic, the living armor fought against intruders and guarded the dungeon. And even though it was magical, it did not receive enough care. Now it was a creaking mess that was falling apart. And if it continued like this, one day it would completely rust and shatter. But it had already been 500 years since it had become useless. Dio had brought Shinji there, and she asked if this was the right place. She is surprised to see a suit of armor, and Dio tells her to go ahead and fix it. Somehow she understands what he means and goes to the armor. The living armor turns its head to face her, and Shinji thinks that the Dragon King's palace is an interesting place with moving armor. Shinji talks to the armor and tells it that she is going to mend it in a bit. The living armor is confused, but Shinji starts figuring it out. The rope with which it was tied was old and worn out, but she managed to tie it back together. But Shinji has to be careful. If she ties it too tightly, the rope may break, and if she ties it too loosely, it may open. But she finishes doing it perfectly, and the living armor is as good as new again. Shinji warns the armor that its rope looks old, so he should get it replaced later. But right now, the living armor is perfectly fine, and it shakes Shinji's hands. And to show his gratitude, he gives her a shield. Shinji is confused about why the armor was giving the shield to her, but it only wanted to help Shinji, who looked defenseless. Shinji has other plans for the shield. The inside was round and hollow, and if she could remove the handle, she could use it as a frying pan. And then she looks at the armor and thinks that she can also use the helmet as a kneading pot, and the gloves as a grater. She asks the armor to help her, and it seems that it can't refuse. The manticore can breathe fire, and Shinji is relieved that she will have fire to cook her food. She puts the pan over the flame and starts preparing the food. Shinji tells Dio and Armor to wait for a bit while she approaches Berkes. She kneels down beside him and wonders how he will like his pancakes. Will he eat them in one bite, or will he cut them up elegantly? And as foolish as she is, she thinks that Berkes might burn his tongue if the pancakes are too hot. And even though it is just some pancakes, Shinji wants the Dragon King to enjoy them. Berkes is also awake, and as he thinks about Shinji, he cannot figure her out. Though she looked innocent and naive, she had already befriended the manticore in the living armor. Berkes wonders if she has a secret agenda. As Shinji asks the armor for his helmet, Berkes thinks that she will not be able to deceive him with just good food. Berkes' eyes shine, and he says that he was going to discover her past and reveal her true self. Shinji is now busy preparing to cook. She has cut up some vegetables, and then she uses the gloves to grate lotus root and peas. Then, with some rock salt and water, she created the dough for the pancake. Berkes can now see her past using magic. It was a pretty loud rural neighborhood, and as he looks around, Berkes finds that he has never seen the houses or clothes that were common in Shinji's neighborhood. He wonders if she is from another dimension. He sees a blind man with his daughter. The man tells her daughter that she has gone through so much trouble because he was a bad father. But the girl is Shinji, and she is too young to understand anything. The girl grows up with her father, and they live by asking for food from other people. In exchange, Shinji helps the families with their chores. Shinji is trying to sew some clothes late at night when she accidentally stabs her finger with the needle. Berkes is taken aback by the injury, but that is not all. The next day, while carrying firewood, Chinji trips over a stone. But as her father comes out, she tells him that she is fine. Her hands were scratched and bleeding, and Berkes says that she is not fine at all. Then, when she was serving soup in an inn, she dropped hot soup on her hand by mistake. And even after that, she said that she was fine. Berkes is now annoyed at how clumsy and foolish Chinji was. Chinji later dips her hand in the nearby stream to cool the burn injury, but she is worried that she might not be able to get a job for some time now. Meanwhile, something else was happening with her father. A Buddhist monk came to him and told him that if he offered 300 bags of rice to Buddha, he would open his eyes. The man cannot believe the offer and immediately takes it. As the monk leaves, Chinji also returns home and asks her father what just happened. He excitedly tells her that there is a way for him to regain his sight. Chinji is now wondering about the offer made by the monk and how she had no money or rice to give to her father. But then she hears some men talking. One man was preparing for a journey across the sea, but the sea was too brutal. The other man says that he should prepare a sacrifice for his safe journey. But the first man replies that there was no one willing to be sacrificed, because no one would risk dying for only 300 bags of rice. Chinji hears those words, and she finds a way to help her father. She approaches the men and asks them to repeat what they just said. And then she volunteers to be a sacrifice in return for the 300 bags of rice. Once on the ship, she jumps into the sea. Even though she was scared, Chinji thought that her father would be able to see now. As she drowned, Chinji remembered the stories her father used to tell her when she was little. According to those stories, there was a giant dragon king under the sea. He had a hall filled with gold and silver, and there were also maids and servants who served the dragon king. And as Chinji wished a long and healthy life for her father, she lost consciousness. When she woke up, she found herself here. Right now, she is preparing food for Berkes. He thinks that Chinji was stupid for jumping into the ocean for a reason like that. But now he knows that Chinji is a human from a different dimension, and that is why she thinks he is the Dragon King. And he thinks that this human doesn't even know how to lie. Chinji is about to fry the pancakes now. She checks the temperature of her makeshift pan and finds that it is hot enough. And she puts the pancakes down and presses them down with her hand. That was how she could give them a nice shape. She remembers that her father also liked the ones with crispy edges. But she controls her emotions, thinking that her father might be doing fine right now. She has completed the cooking and takes it to Berkes. She tells him to eat it before it gets cold, and he pretends to wake up. He thinks that he is a good actor, and Chinji would not doubt that he was already awake. But then Chinji shows him the lotus root and mugwort pancakes, and Berkes finds it weird. Chinji tells him that this dish was eaten in her hometown in the spring. It was light-flavored but quite savory. She says that she made it sincerely so that the Dragon King would enjoy it. Berkes asks her if she is ready for the taste test, and even though Chinji is nervous, she says she is. Berkes wonders which type of pancake would taste better and picks one up. But then he looks at Chinji and panics. But Chinji is thinking that the Dragon King looked tired of her. And then she faints, with Berkes catching her just in time. He is worried, but Chinji is still thinking that she has not heard his reply yet. Berkes wakes her up and takes her to his sofa. Chinji thanks him for helping her. He starts asking her how long she has been overworking herself. And Chinji laughs, saying that she didn't know. But she also doesn't know how she has the energy to laugh in this condition. And Berkes is getting annoyed by the answer now. He uses his magic to heal her, and he doesn't know why he's doing this either. But then she suddenly asks him if she is allowed to go home now. Berkes is frustrated and tells her that even if he sends her off, she will not be able to make it back home. He thinks that Chinji should have thought about this before jumping off the ship. Dimensional travel was not so easy that one could do it whenever they wished. But he still helps her lay comfortably on the sofa and covers her with his blanket. He himself sits on the floor as he starts eating the food. Berkes thinks that with such a fragile body, he should not let Chinji work so hard again, because that was how he could ensure that she stayed well and kept cooking for him. But as he takes a bite of the lotus root pancake, he finds that it is too salty. But he thinks that since she was already ill, her taste must be off. He tries to take a bite of the other one after that, but that is also quite salty, and Chinji is already sound asleep. Now, in a nearby town, some people are running in a hurry. The soldiers are trying to round them up, and now they are all on the ground in front of the tax collector. The tax collector is disappointed that there are so few people here, and he thought that there would be around 50 people here. But the soldier accompanying him says that the rest of the people ran away. The tax collector scolds the soldier for not doing his job, but then he says that they couldn't have run too far. He is thinking that because of some stupid subordinates, he can't even do his job properly. And the reason he was on the edge was because of the king of the country. The king had told the tax collector that the tax was gradually declining, and the reason for that was the people who ran away instead of paying their taxes. The tax collector was anxious, but he told the truth, and the king asked him to go to the people himself. The tax collector immediately accepted the order and said that he would capture the runaway people and take the tax along with interest. But the king said that wherever the people ran, they were still the subjects of his kingdom, and thus they would be punished according to his laws. Now, the tax collector wants to complete the job as quickly as he can so that he can get home. He starts the interrogation and asks the people about their leader, but they don't say anything, and the tax collector takes out his sword to threaten them. A man stands up and takes responsibility for leading the group. He was the chief of the village, and as he gets up, everyone else starts murmuring. The tax collector asks him if he is a resident of the Yongji nation, and the village chief bowed to him and said that all of them were Yongji people. And the tax collector then tells him that their act of not paying their taxes was illegal according to the law. It was considered a means of protest against the sacred tax. Everyone is scared when they hear these words. The village chief tries to explain the reason, but the tax collector does not let him speak. Instead, he starts shouting about the punishment they would receive for failing to meet their tax obligation. The village chief clings to the tax collector's feet and says that the harvest was very poor this year. The children were starving, and they were in no position to pay the hefty tax. The taxes had been increased 5 times since last year, and even if the collector took everything, that would still not be enough. The guards come and drag the crying old man away, and then they start to beat him. The tax collector and his soldiers throw the village chief back to his people. He then says that they were not here to hear his whining, and if they had a bad harvest and their children were starving, it was their own fault. The tax collector says that they should have worked harder to avoid that. They should have worked day and night for the sake of the Lord and farmed more. But instead of that, they rested and ate up all their harvest. They did not even pay their taxes. The people are deeply disturbed by the condescending way the tax collector is talking to them, but they have no choice but to listen. He says that they had run away enough. If they were unsuccessful, it was because they lacked passion and effort. He says that they were charged with tax evasion and mutiny, and the punishment for that was death, which the tax collector would deliver with his own hands. As he draws his sword to kill the people, he tells them that their food will be confiscated and their village will disappear. But as he raises his sword, people hear the loud flapping of wings, and when they open their eyes, they see something much more terrifying than the tax collector and his men. Chenji was in the village, riding Diho, and as the tax collector looks at the girl on the manticore, he is frozen stiff from fear. Chenji asks them to forgive her sudden intrusion. A few hours ago, Chenji was cleaning the dungeon, and she had made it sparkling clean. But Berkes was too annoyed by the sweeping sound and could not sleep. But she told him that the sun was already high in the sky, and Berkes replied that it rose every day. Chenji says that people have to wake up when the sun rises, but Berkes says that he was not a human and could sleep however long he liked. But he couldn't sleep because of the ruckus Chenji was causing. Chenji had never heard of that reasoning, but Berkes says that it is true. He had realized the reason for Chenji's acting like that. As soon as she woke up feeling better, she found that Berkes had left some pancakes for her. And like he hoped, she was hungry and immediately ate one. But just as she ate the pancake, she realized how awfully salty it was. And then she drank 5 jars of water to wash away that taste. And now she was trying to make up for that mistake. Berkes tells her that it was a good thing that she was skilled at cleaning, but she had done it in excess. Chenji had arranged the treasures by category, and the dragon did not like that. Chenji can only reply that she also wants to clean Berkes' bedroom, and he refuses. But he asks her if she got enough rest before cleaning, and Chenji says that she got more than enough rest. Berkes asks her how much she slept, and he is shocked to learn that she slept for only 8 hours. He is confused because he does not know anything about human sleep. For dragons, even a 10-year rest was usually no more than a good nap. And as he explains this to Chenji, he asks if 8 hours is really enough rest. He thinks that this must be the reason humans can't even live up to 100 years. And this causes Berkes to worry. It meant that Chenji would be awake every day and cause the same ruckus. He would not be able to sleep properly as long as she was around. And suddenly, Berkes is worried about his naps. If he kills her to get out of this trouble, he will have to break his word. And if he does that, he will lose the power of the dragon. And even though Chenji is satisfied with her labor, Berkes feels that the cleaning was a horrible experience. He tries to think hard to find a solution to his problem and gets an idea. Berkes uses magic to create the illusion of candy. He tells Chinji that these colorful things are called candies. They are hard at first, but then they slowly melt in your mouth. And Chinji is wondering if the Dragon King could show images with his hands, he could also grant wishes. But Berkes is planning something else. He asks Chinji to go and make candies and she is stunned and stupefied. Berkes tells her to make candies for him. He thinks that no matter how good Chinji was at cooking, she could not make them in the dungeon. And Chinji is thinking that she doesn't want to die, so she can't refuse. Berkes thinks that Chinji will need a lot of time to make candies, and he can use it to take a nap. But Chinji asks him if he wants her to make pine nut taffy. It was a sweet from the area she lived in, and Berkes thinks that it sounds weird. Yet he tells her to make it if she knows how to. Chinji says that she was at a loss when she thought about making taffy in a place like this, and that is exactly what the dragon wanted. He gets excited and jumps up to go to Chinji. She tells him that she would need a lot of ingredients to make the taffy, but she has never seen anything like wheat in the dungeon, and she does not know how she can get the ingredients and make the dish here. She turns to face Berkes and says that he was putting her through so much trouble. But Berkes is not listening anymore. He is already trying to sleep. He tells Chinji that once she makes it, she can wake him up. Chinji is mad, but then Diho suddenly appears to help her. She asks him if he could help her get the ingredients to make taffy, and he is eager to help. And then he flies her to the village, where everyone is mortified upon seeing Diho. Chinji thinks that it was good luck to find people living so nearby. The tax collector is scared of the giant lion. He thinks that if the giant claws hit him once, he would be shredded to pieces. He is scared, but he has to calm himself down. There was a lot at stake, and the most important thing for him was his life. He can still not see Chinji, so when he hears her voice, he starts trembling. Chinji is about to get down from Diho's back, and the tax collector can see her now. He is shocked. How could a girl ride a creature like that? Moreover, she was too peaceful, and it was impossible for this situation to be normal. And the tax collector can conclude only one thing. The girl was a witch. With this, the first part of the video ends. Did you like the story? If you liked it, please leave a like and comment, and also subscribe to our channel. Also, tell us what you think will happen now in the comments, and wait for the next part of the story as it comes.